Hey everyone, Boardgame Brody here with Meeple Mountain. I have a copy of Flourish, a garden building card game for 1 to 7 players by Starling Games. Flourish is a card drafting set collection game of building a garden and scoring points both after each round and at the end of the game. What might set this game apart from others is the number of players allowed to play the game all at the same time. We are used to seeing games for 2 to 4 players, but this game ranges from 1 to 7, so it will be easy to get this game out for any occasion. The theme takes on nature and having a garden, something that most of us would love to do if we don't already. The game length ranges from 20 to 60 minutes, mostly depending on the players and how much players want to think about which cards they want and which they will want to give to others. And now the art is pretty stellar, and you will be checking out all the art as you play the game. But the gameplay will take you to look at the icons, as a lot of the ways to score focuses on how many of the certain icons you have in your garden. Let me explain a little more of the game, and then I'll talk some more about it. Setup is easy and quick, and each player has a scoreboard starting at 0. And when scoring points after each round, you'll be able to spin your counter to how many points that you scored. When you score past 9, you will then use the next counter as the tens place, and the one to the right as the ones place. Eventually, if and when you get to the hundreds, you will use the third counter for the hundreds place. The walls are placed between all players, and the wall is to help organize which card is which when giving to other players. So when you give a card to your neighbor, you'll place it on their side of the fence, but make sure you place it next to the fence so they know what the card is from. This is important as players will all be placing cards in front of them, giving cards to other neighbors, and also receiving cards from their neighbors. So the fence will help organize this all. The deck of cards are shuffled, and each player will be dealt out 6 cards to start the game. The remaining cards are placed in the middle of the table, and now each player will take time to look at the 6 cards that they have. The game is played over 4 rounds. In each round, you will play 3 cards out in front of you, and at the end of the round, you will score points for any end-of-round scoring on your cards played that round. The 4th round is a little bit different, which I will explain later, but after the 4 rounds you will score all your cards using the end of game scoring listed on all of your cards. So make sure that you know when each listed scoring potential will actually score so that you can play and progress your garden to score the most points. Let's take a look at these cards to know when the listed scoring potential is scored and to know the layout of the cards. The top left will show you the end of round scoring. At the end of whatever round that you may be in, you will score whatever is listed in any of the 3 cards that you played with anything listed on the top left. You will score these on all cards laid out in your garden at that time. On the left side of the cards shows icons, and these will be the icons that you will be counting to score points between the end of round scoring and the end of game scoring. If you get points for each symbol included in your garden, then you might want to play cards with the most of these symbols to gain the most points. Beneath the icons on the bottom left of the card, there might be a stone or a plant symbol. These two are icons that can be used to score in any manner given there is a scoring opportunity listed on a card in your garden. Lastly, the bottom right shows the end of game scoring abilities. These won't score until your garden has its 12 cards placed at the end of the game. If you fulfill the requirement looking at your entire garden, then you will score the shown points associated with the end of game scoring. So let's go back to the gameplay. So players will simultaneously choose one of their 6 cards to place in their garden. Cards are placed from left to right, top to bottom, like this, 3 at a time. So back to the first round. You have chosen a card for your garden, and you will place it face down in front of you. Now you will choose one of the remaining 5 cards to give to the player to your left and right. Again, placing it on their side of the fence face down. They will also be doing the same, placing cards on your side of the fence. Once everyone is done, players will flip over their chosen garden card, placing it out, and placing the cards their neighbors gave them into their hand. At this point, you will have 5 cards in your hand again, and the last thing you will do is you will take 1 card from the deck to again have a hand of 6. You will continue this until you have played 3 cards, and at this point you are at the end of the round. Players will then simultaneously score any end of round scoring abilities listed on the top left of any of their 3 cards played that round. Keep track of these points on your scoreboard. Players will continue doing this 3 times, and at this point, they will have 9 cards placed out and have scored points 3 times at the end of each of those 3 rounds. Now, at the end of the 3rd round, you will collect the 2 cards that your neighbor gave you, but you will not draw an extra card from the deck. So in the 4th round, players will all begin this round with only 5 cards, and you will choose 3 of the 5 from your hand to play in your garden all at the same time. Hopefully at this point in the game you have planned ahead with your hand of cards with cards that you want to play. The remaining 2 cards will be discarded, and players will all reveal their last 3 cards all at the same time and score their end of round abilities. With 12 cards out, the end of game scoring is now performed. Visit the bottom right of each card in your garden and see if you accomplished its requirement. If so, score the shown points. Whoever has the most points at this point wins the game. The game includes other ways to enjoy the game how you like to play. There is a cooperative way where players will talk more about their cards, handing off good cards to their neighbors, and players are all trying to make the best gardens together. A solo variant is included where there is a developed system where you get cards similar to a real person, and whenever you score at the end of a round, you will also score the same end of round abilities on the card shown on your opponent's garden, Mr. McGregor. The compost variant lets you burn through cards faster to get exposed to more stuff. So either way you like to play the game, you can play with various numbers of players and with different variants that float your boat. To make things even better, there are already 2 small expansions that you can add to the base game to give the game some more oomph. The Friends expansion adds in creature friends that just love being in your garden. These creatures or friends are cards that are dealt out, 2 to each player at the beginning of the game. These cards list requirements that this friend would like to have in a garden. And if you match the requirement listed on the card, then you will gain the listed points shown. You will be able to score one of the 2 cards at the end of the game. The friend cards give you a little guidance to start the game so that you can pick certain cards over others. The Follies expansion also includes another way to score points at the end of the game. A folly is a building or a kind of structure designed for decoration. In this expansion, each player will take 1 of each type of folly, 5 in total. When playing the game, you will make a 3x3 grid in the first 3 rounds. At the end of each of the 3 rounds, you can place any unplaced follies on cards placed in that round in your garden. The folly will need to match the card by having at least 1 plant symbol matching the symbol on the folly, and no more than 1 folly can be placed on the same card. Also, since follies will score additional points in a certain way, you can rearrange your cards that you played that round before placing any follies. Now, when playing the last 3 cards in your hand at the end of the game, you may place them anywhere outside of the 3x3 grid that would score you the most points. Follies score 2 points for each matching symbol on the card that it's on, and any cards that are adjacent to it, not diagonal. And also, each adjacent card that has no symbols on it is worth 3 points. This would be like the walls, lawns, or features. Now, for each folly that you are unable to place, then you will score a negative 5 points. So you will want to try to get a symbol of each type in your garden and make sure that you place the folly on it during the same round that you place that card. Again, with the expansions, you will use your scoreboard, and whoever has the most points wins the game. So what does Flourish offer? Well, it's a nice strategic card game that can be played quickly. Its production is done so well that it has a great table presence, and you know everyone likes to play a game that has nice art with the addition of some 3D elements to give it a little more touchy game than if it was just cards and tokens. The game reminds me of a blend of Arboretum, Tang Garden, and Biblios. Flourish does a great job at adding strategy to so few cards that you use in the game. Each card is important, as it could be the difference of winning or losing, but you won't be able to know which one is better per se while playing the game, only later when you find out which cards you get that match with maybe some that you got rid of already. Player interaction can also affect the game, as players will be giving you certain cards to either not help you when playing competitively or to help you when playing cooperatively. But this choice is also hard as you have a small hand of cards. At times you might want to keep them all because they all would work amazing with your current strategy, while other times you might hold specific cards you know you want and ones you know you want to give to others. These choices also adds another layer. Do you want to give a card that is bad for you but might be great for your neighbor? Do you want to give them a card that is bad for them but would have been good for you? And sometimes you just luck out with a card that is bad for you and also bad for them, and at that point you feel very good about that decision. So decisions on what card you want to add, which cards you want to keep for later or potentially the last round, and which cards you want to hand off to your neighbors are all intertwined and isn't a decision that usually you can make without thinking. I absolutely love the last round because usually you have held on to certain cards that will pay out big points between the end of round and end of game abilities. And sometimes these big point generators are abilities that can count symbols or criteria from your neighboring players' gardens. As you can find a card that will match up very well with what your neighbor is doing, and well, it almost feels like stealing points, but it's really just great planning and recognition. The expansions also add in more complexity, more the Follies expansion than the Friends, but I would never not play with the Friends expansion, as it is just so easy to implement in the game. The Follies expansion adds more choices and makes planning and placement more important. So this really is one of those fast to play, very strategic, amazing looking games. So it would be easy to get to the table if you were looking for those attributes in a game. Let's talk about how amazing the game looks. Of course, the art is great and gives you a better feel of the theme, but then with the Follies, it blends the theme with the gameplay to make you feel the theme, not just think of the theme. So grab your plants, your friends, and Follies to play Flourish by Starling Games. Again, this is Boardgame Brody. I hope you enjoyed this video. Stick around and check out some other board game reviews to see what you might want to get to the table.